Okay, grade 12s, welcome to another theory class. And today we will be looking at e-communication. And the word e means electronic communication. So think about any sort of communication that happens between computers, between managers, between offices, between organizations, done electronically is what we refer to as e-communications. So that's what we're going to be looking on the module 2.3. So I hope you enjoyed. What are the objectives? Today we will be looking at introducing the subject to you. We're going to look at the uses of digital communication, which means use of electronic devices to create communications between people or between computers. We're also going to be looking at how do we use the web efficiently. And we're also going to look at the new trends and technology that we have around us now. So that's what we're going to be looking at under this topic. So let's start. So like I mentioned, e-communication is an electronic communication between two people. It can be from one computer to another. It can be between organizations or between departments. But what you need to be at the back of your mind is it is a kind of communication that is done electronically. Okay, and you can see now in this age which we live, no one is using the post office anymore. No one is using other forms of communication or traveling. Even if you look at the present time that we find ourselves with the COVID-19, people are now turning to online communication. People are turning to use of electronic communication. People are going to meetings via e-conference, via video conferencing, voice conferencing. All of those things is what you find now. So people are no longer using the conventional ways of communication. So that's why e-communication is a very important topic that we need to look at. And we need to look at what are the strengths and advantages of digital communication. Okay, digital communication, again, remember, that is when we talk about e-communication. One of the things you need to be at the back of your mind is it's easy to communicate digitally, very easy on our smartphones, on our WhatsApp. We can do a voice note, we can send messages, we can send text messages to ourselves, we can do a video call to ourselves. This is really making communication easy for every one of us. We can connect and communicate worldwide, which means you're not bound by your geographical location. You can communicate with anyone in the United States. You can communicate with anyone in the UK. You can even have a video conferencing with people spread across the world at the same time. So that's also another beautiful advantage of digital or electronic communication. It can be used where you are on a multiple device. Again, if you're on your smartphone, you can use it. If you're on your tablet, you can use it. If you're on your computer or your laptop, you can use it. So it can be used where you are on multiple devices. It's faster than conventional method of communication. I was referring to conventional like the post office. I mean, in those days, if you post a letter from here to the United States, it might take you a month for it to arrive at the destination. Whereas now you can click a button and send an email to someone in the United States and they will find the message instantly. So it's way faster than the conventional methods that we use in the olden days. You can save your money on travel, which means you don't have to physically attend any meeting. You can actually attend meetings via online video conferencing or online voice conferencing or whatever it's easy and cheaper for you. So you save quite a lot of money on traveling. A lot of managers now, a lot of top managers are now saving a lot of money on travel costs. It's cheaper than other forms of communication. If you look at it, posting a big parcel or posting a huge document overseas in those days was quite expensive. So nowadays you find it's easy to just send or share files over the internet, and no matter where that person is, they would receive it instantly. So it's quite cheaper than the other forms of communication that we use. Content to vast audience, which means I can share information with a major or a large group of people. So that's what we mean by the vast audience. So you could send one content, a photo of yourself, or an agenda of a meeting with everybody all across the world. So that's why we mean content can be shared to a vast audiences. Okay, and multiple medium types in communication session. So you can use video, you can use voice, you can type text, whatever is you find easy for you is what you would use at this point. Okay, and one of the good things you can find now is you can also record your communications. So which means even if you've sent something across electronically, you can still see what was sent. So it serves as a proof of communication, and this is what you find easy when you use electronic communication. Okay, so but again, everything that has its own advantage do have its own disadvantage as well. So let's look at the weaknesses, the disadvantages, and the limitations of digital communications. Okay, so one of it is it largely depends on your internet coverage and your internet speed. So if you have a good internet coverage, you won't have a problem to do certain things over electronic media. Or if you have a good internet speed as well, it's easy to do video, it's easy to do voice across to everybody. So that's also one of the good things with e-communication. But the reality is these largely depends on internet coverage and your internet speed. Also, it requires other people to be connected digitally as well. So which means if the person on the other side is not connected, they might not be able to receive the message instantly. So you need to ensure when you're communicating electronically that the other person that you are communicating with is also digitally connected. Okay, so that you need to be at the back of your mind. It's a relatively expensive equipment and high data cost in South Africa. So there is a huge high data cost in South Africa, and that is why people sometimes do run away from the use of electronic communication. Because also think about it, the devices, the smartphones, the laptops, the computers that we use to convey electronic communications are also relatively expensive. So you need to bear that in mind, that these things can be expensive to set up, and we also have a high data cost in South Africa. Okay, hardware and software compatibility issues might occur, so which means sometimes your hardware may not be compatible with the software, and this might create issues of you being able to open a particular file. So this does happen when we communicate electronically. I think a lot of people will remember that sometimes teachers share a particular format of a document with you via WhatsApp, but you would say, I can't open it because I don't have the right software. So always be at the back of your mind that you need to have the right software compatible with hardware in order for you to be able to use certain format or be able to read certain messages electronically. Okay, so that bear that in mind. It depends on the skills and confidence of the user. You must know what you need to do. You must know what software or what application you need in order to open a particular message. So that you need to be at the back of your mind as well. So those are just basically some sort of disadvantages or limitations of using digital communication. So we're moving on to the next thing now. Now, since it's now becoming part of us, since everybody's now using digital communication, we need to talk about what are the good practices when you're using digital communication, what is allowed, what is not allowed when you're using digital communication. Number one, you need to keep the time zones in mind. And what do we mean by this? You need to ensure that the person who you're sending messages to or you're trying to have a video conference with is in the right time. In other words, is during the day. You don't want to make a video call to someone who is still sleeping in their pajamas at home. So you need to ensure that the time zones in which you're placing a video call is fine for the recipient of your electronic communication. So that's very, very important. Keep differences in bandwidth, the cost, speed, and the cap in mind. Make sure that, you know, if you're trying to place a video call and you are on an uncapped bandwidth, you need to take into consideration that the other person might be using a capped data. So you need to bear that in mind, that it's better that I rather make a voice instead of making a video, because if you make a voice, it will be way more cheaper than you placing a video call. So keep differences in mind in terms of your bandwidth of your internet speed. That is very, very important. Digital communications are largely impersonal and faceless except for video conferencing. So people don't really see you or don't know what you're doing if you're doing a voice note or if you're placing a voice call. They don't know where you are. But when it comes to video conferencing, you've got to be very careful there, because when you place a video call, definitely the person will be able to see your face, and this could be personal at some time. So you need to know what is appropriate and what is not appropriate to wear, what to say, what to expose, particularly when you're placing a video call. You cannot undo something you have said or typed. Remember that. So if you type something or a rude word or something that can be used against you, please be careful with that, because that could put you into a lot of trouble. So be careful. Or if you place a video call and you're semi-naked or you're in your pajamas and you're supposed to have a business meeting with someone on the other side of the world, that could put a lot of trouble into your hands. And this is why you have to be very, very careful when it comes to things like that. Okay. And also bear in mind always that internet is a very public space. Never think you're the only one or you're private on the internet. No, internet is a public space, and your information can be accessed by people all around the world. So be careful of what you post on the web. And that is why I always say, if it's not good for your eyes, please don't put it on the internet, because you never know who's going to lay their hands on your picture or your data or whatever information you're sharing over the internet. Okay, so that's what we want you to know. Now, what do we use digital communication for? Number one, we use digital communication for email. We all know what email is. This is when we compose and send and receive messages electronically over a network using the internet. Okay, sending and receiving of email messages is exactly what we call electronic mail. And an example of electronic mail, we have Gmail, we have Yahoo, we have AOL, we have many Hotmail that are free for every one of us to use. And the good thing about email is we could also use them to create a calendar, a contact list for ourselves, a task list, and archive features to help us to be well organized, particularly when we're dealing with very sensitive data all across, or whether you're responsible for data communication at your company. So you've got to be very, very careful. So that is why Gmail, it's actually a very good tool for you to use when it comes to communicating your information or your product or marketing or having business engagement with other people all across the world. So this is just an example of platforms where you can send email, where you can create your contact list, where you can create your business cards, where you can have your contact telephone numbers of people, where you can send new emails, and so on and so forth. So email is a very good tool used in electronic communication. Okay, just to tell you what we do with the email calendar, most of the times we use it as a reminder for events. It's more or less like keeping a diary online. You could write birthdays, or you could write your appointment as well on your email calendar. You can sync these with your smartphone and your tablet, so which means automatically if you update your appointments and your birthdays on your computer, you can also have the information displayed on your smartphone or your tablet. And you can also access your schedule wherever you are. And this, always bear in mind that as long as you have internet connection is very, very important when it comes to electronic mail, which is our email. Okay. We can also use it to set up tasks for ourselves to do. Remember, a lot of us create a to-do list. We can also use our email to create a to-do list so that we can know exactly what or when there's a certain deadlines that we need to meet. So also we can also use it very well to assign a due date to many tasks that we had onto our email calendar. So it's very important. It just makes life easy for you and makes you a bit more organized, and that is why you would use email for your tasks. The good thing about it is if you use Gmail to set up tasks and deadline, Gmail will actually remind you. It will give you an indication. You can set an alarm, you can set a date for it, and it just makes your work a bit better and manageable for you. Okay. Also, you can create contact list, which is also a good thing. You can create contact list on your email, so you don't have to remember address book or contact list or contact email of people all the time. Once you've added them to your contact list, it's easy for you to just recall that name and that email address easily for you to share information with them. A good thing about this is also you can create groups, so you can have colleagues at work, you can have colleagues per branch to make it easy for you to be able to send a general email to people at once. Where you store your email addresses and other contact details. Our contact details on our emails are used to store email addresses and other contact details of people, like their cell numbers. It can be configured to automatically add email addresses to the list when you use them. So what we mean by this is the first time you use an email, the computer or the email software like Gmail will tell you, do you want to automatically add this email address to your contact list, so that the next time you're trying to send that email to Mr. X, you don't always have to ask for the email address. It will already be stored or automatically added to your email contact list. And the good thing about this is your content can be well organized into groups, into distribution groups. Like I said earlier on, you can have it in per project, you can have it per branch, you can have it per city, you can have it for a group of friends at church. Whatever you need to do, you can actually organize your email to whatever your needs are. Okay. With emails, we can also do what we call archiving, which is a way in which we tidy up our inbox by moving messages from your inbox to an archive folder without deleting them. Which, in other words, these are emails that you don't really refer to all the time. So you just want to put them away so that it's not taking too much space in your inbox or it's not confusing you with your inbox. So what you do is you archive them away, you put them separately away. But remember, in the future, you might need to reference to the same email again. So where would you find that? You would then have to go back to your archive in order for you to find already archived emails. So this is a very good thing that everybody would do like or use with the email addresses. Right. The other use of digital communication is social networking sites. Social networking sites are, for example, Facebook, Instagram, Instablog, Hola Vblog, or a blog site. They're all social networking sites. And this is a platform where people, institutions, or companies engage with one another. So it's a sort of a social network to stay in touch and communicate with others all around the world. On your Facebook, you can communicate with your friends in New York, with your friends in China, wherever you want to communicate. Sometimes we use social networking sites to advertise, to market products and services, to network with people with similar interests. So when you have some of the same interest in zeal, you can share the same or be a friend of that person on social network site. It's also used to communicate news about an organization or a club. For example, a soccer club has a Facebook page, so it's easy for us to share information or to share good news about the club. Also, the school has a social networking site where you can learn about what we're doing at the School of Hope, pictures or photos of learners' outings and whatever we want to share with the public. That you can find mostly on our social networking site. So social networking site is becoming something that is really part of everyone now, and I believe by now everybody has their own social networking account, for example maybe on Facebook, on Instagram, in which they use to get in touch and communicate with their friends and family all over the world. So that's also becoming part of us. So example of that, we have Microsoft Teams, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Pinterest, we have Google Hangout, Google Meets, they call it now. Instead of Google Hangout, we call it Google Meets now. And also we have the LinkedIn account, which you can use. So if you want to be very social, very friendly, most people would use Instagram, we use a Facebook, but if you Twitter, but if you want to be a little bit professional, I think most people will be on the LinkedIn social media sites. So that's one of the use of digital communication. Just to quickly inform you, for those who doesn't have a Facebook account, it's very easy. We can all open a Facebook account easily on www.facebook.com and follow the easy instructions to sign up. You have to supply an email address, and once you've signed in, you can start adding your profile information, and then you're ready to add your friends. Or easily friends can find your profile name easily on the search, and then you can connect with friends and family on Facebook. So that's just the easy way. Managing it is very important. You have to go to settings like you would do with any management system. You in your settings, you can change your username or your password or the way you receive notifications. That can be done on settings. Also, you can create some privacy. In other words, limit who can view your information, who can post on your wall, who can tag you in a post, as well as who can share your post. So those are the things you can do. These are all settings you can do. And also on the privacy, you can create limits as to what people can do on your Facebook account. Okay, so that's very easy. Just a snippet of where you can do that on your Facebook page. We also have other use of digital communication. Sometimes we have what we call blogs, and sometimes we have what we call vlogs. Okay, so always remember there's the difference between the two. A weblog or the blogs are websites that are updated often with news and events in chronological or sequential order. So in other words, with the most recent one on top. Always when you post new messages there, the most recent one will go on top. And an example of such things you'll find on your Facebook account. As you post new information or new news on your Facebook page, the most recent one will be on the top. So that's why we say it's in a chronological or sequential order. And then the more recent type of blogs that we're getting is what we call vlog, which is a video blog, and it's a form of blog that uses video as a medium. Okay, so I would always say, if you think about how you make videos on your YouTube, if you make videos on your Facebook, if you make videos on your Instagram, those are example of your vlog that you've created. But bear in mind, these are all uses of digital communication. Okay. What can we use our blogs for? Blogs are used by people or organizations for the following: to share personal experiences of themselves, of a company, of what they do, to market, to share with people success stories, whatever they want to do with that. It's also used for citizen journalism, when you share information about being a citizen of a country, or the right way to live, or the responsible way to live as a citizen of a country. It could be a news blog. For example, our News 24 is an example of a news blog. where you get information or recent news all across the country. And also sometimes we use it for corporate information blog sites. So corporate means used by businesses or organization to share information about their services, and so on and so forth. So you can use your blogs for all of this. How do you publish a blog? It's very easy. You can publish on WordPress. You can publish on blog, which is a B. Yeah, you can publish on Squarespace, Typepad, SharePoint. There's a lot of these free to use blog publishing websites. Bear in mind that there are different blog providers and hosts available depending on your preference, what you like. There are websites that allows you to create an account, set up your blog, and host your blog free of charge. And most of them, like I mentioned earlier, will be WordPress, Blogger, Wix, Squarespace. You would have Typepad and Weebly. Okay, so these are examples of places where you can start a blog. And I think this is great. This is a great tool for you as youth to use to share very, very good information or to inspire and encourage your fellow youth in the right way, or to be responsible citizen of a country. So come up with something interesting and share amongst your friends and or family or allies or whatever you have. Okay, so I think that's great. Publishing is very easy. All you need to do is to create an account, sign up for the blog on the website of the blog provider, just like you will sign up for the Gmail on a Google website. The same thing. They're all web-based, so it's free to use. Decide the name that can be part of your blog's URL. For example, your blog's domain or your address of a host website. So I can say, for example, Ade Oyewo's blog page, educator's blog page, principal blog page. I could think about anything that I can use. It's up to me and it's up to you, whatever you want to use in that aspect. Choose your theme and the type of first post in your blog editor of a blog website and save the draft of the post. When you have completed the post, select publish. So what's important is you need to go and edit, you need to start the draft, you need to work on the draft, language editing, grammar editing, because remember, the moment you click publish, your blog will be available on the public domain, okay? And you don't want people to see spellings or grammatical errors on your blog. Otherwise, that might put people off from coming back to see your next news. So be careful, read through it, create your draft, walk through it, and make sure all the edits has been done properly before you publish. Okay, so that's just how to publish a blog, and I hope you can get onto it and create one for yourself. Okay, a good way to use digital communication again is what we call podcasts. Mostly podcasts are audio file, often in an MP3 format. It's voice, so which means it's only voice notes. There's nothing of video content at all. It can be downloaded individually or via a subscription. So some podcasts you have to pay to listen to them, whereas some you just have to download and it's free to use. It can be purchased by professionals or amateurs, or the video podcast, which we now call vodcasts, include video clips or photo. But I'll tell you the cheaper one to go for is your audio podcast. It's just to share something if you want to. People love saying some poem. People love saying writing an article or talking about a very topical question. Topical issue in the society. They do come up with podcast. And it's a very good thing to have, because the good thing about podcasts is you don't have to stream it online. You can actually download it onto a device like your phone, like a MP3 player, your smartphone, your tablet, and then you can listen to it whenever you want to. But the most recent type of podcast that we're now getting is what we call the video podcast. So mostly I've seen a lot of comedians doing video podcast and sharing and selling to people all around the world. So podcast can be used for the following. It can be used to download radio shows. A lot of them, if you look at many of radio shows that we have, It's done via podcast. It can be used for educational purposes like your tutorials, your lectures, or your lessons. It can be used for tourists or visitors in places of interest such as museums, just for them to listen to a story about a particular artifact that you'll find in museums. So podcast is very, very useful, and I'll tell you a very good one that I love listening to all of the time is a video podcast, because you can see the person, you can watch the person, and you can do it at any time. You can actually download it and on your device and watch it at any time for yourself. Again, another use of digital communication is the wikis. An example of that is our Wikipedias. Wikis allow for collaborative editing and creating of content of web pages. So it's a collaborative effort. When people bring together ideas, that's what we mean by collaboration. And we use it to create content of web pages. It takes the form of a web page, and access to them is usually free. So look at our Wikipedia website. That's when we get certain information sometimes. And that is why, again, I always refer to Wikipedia sites as not reliable. And the reason why I always say it's not reliable is because of the collaboration. Anyone can go onto the web pages and edit or create content on that web page. So you're not sure what they're saying, you cannot verify what they're saying, and that is why we say wikis or Wikipedias are not a good or a reliable source for your research. Wikis can be used for the following: for creating company intranets. So remember, there's a difference between internet and there's a difference to intranet. Intranet is when files or information are shared within the company's network. So it has nothing to do with the outside network. So that's why we call it intranet. Okay. Wikis can be used in creating community websites for communities, for churches, for religious organizations. We can use wikis to create that. Wikis are good for making checklists and lists of things to do when a number of people are working on a large project. So it's collaborative. We can carry on adding, and a lot of people can do that at their own time. So wiki is also a very useful tool for digital communication. Okay, it's also good for creating reference sites. So if it's something basic, if it's something that certain people have information about it and they want to share it with the outside world, it's great. People can still reference it. But when you're doing scientific research, you cannot use Wikipedia as a source in your reference. Okay, so you've got to be very careful with that. Wikis can be used to create educational resources, to listen to read. You could remember the encyclopedias are made out of wikis. So that tells you that it can also be used for educational resources. So a typical example of wikis that you'll find around is Wikipedia, which is a free encyclopedia that you find over the internet. Okay. Another use of digital communication is GPS technology. GPS technology is, for example, you will find in smartphone cameras and other devices. Some businesses use GPS technology to allow the users to earn loyalty points. Targeted advertising is when business send a unique advertising to their customers as they enter the vicinity of the shop. So GPS can be used to send targeted adverts, which is when people know your coordinates, when people know your geographical positioning. And sometimes in some shops, as you step into the front door and enter the business premises, you get a message immediately to say, welcome to the store. And that's exactly what we refer to as targeted advertising. So what we use in such is what we call GPS technology. But bear in mind, we are using GPS technology to communicate. So that is where it comes into digital communication. Okay, so that's that. Now let's talk about how to use the web efficiently. Number one, we always have to ensure that we have the right web browser every time. And what is a web browser? It's an application that allows you to navigate, view, and interact with the content on the web, or you can say with the content on the internet. Okay, so an example of your web browsers that we're all familiar with is Firefox, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, and you would have Mozilla Firefox. Those are examples of web browsers that you find, and this really helps you to be able to navigate or to interact or to view content easily on the internet. Okay, and the way to do it is on those web browsers, you need to have certain settings done in order for you to enjoy browsing the internet. So in all web browsers, you can set a default web page known as your home page that opens when you load the web browser. So if I go to www.mozillafirefox.com, for example, I can set up a page to load immediately. So I can make any default or create my own home page. I can use a default. I can use blank, which means there will be no page display. It will just open a blank web page for me. I can use current. If there's a particular web page that I go to all the time, I can use current. It's all up to me what I want to use. Some people would use the campaigning website as a default page. Some people will use the email account as a default page. It's up to you what you find easy for yourself. Sometimes also to make navigation easy, we set what we call bookmarks or favorites. Bookmarks option allows a user to store shortcuts to web pages that they frequently visit. So in other words, if I go to Gmail all the time, or if I visit www.schoolofhub.co.za all the time, I can add it to my favorite page. So I don't always have to type it. When I need to go to those web pages, I just click on my favorites and I click on that web page, and then it takes me to the page that I want to be. So this is also an easy way for you to navigate internet easily. You can also use the history option, which allows you to find the web pages you have previously visited. So it's like it takes you back to the history, back to where you visited yesterday. So when you click on the history option on your internet browser, it shows a list of sites you visited, and you can configure the length of time that you would like to keep the history on for. So sometimes you can have a history just for the day, for last week, for 2 weeks, or for 3 weeks, or for a month. It's up to you how long you want to configure the length of time that you would like to keep your history for. But history is also very important. Even sometimes we forget about the page we went yesterday, and you just can't make that name or that web page again. An easy way to do it is to go to your history option, and then you'll be able to see the web pages you visited lost. The other one I'm going to talk about is what we call a pop-up blocker. And this is very important. A pop-up is a small web browser window that appears on the top of a website you're viewing. They are usually created by advertisers and often open as soon as you visit a website. So this sometimes can be very annoying. It just pops up and down on your page, and you can even get to what you need to do. So that is why we use pop-up blocker. Okay, and what does the pop-up blockers do? They are features of most web browser, and they allow you to limit or block most of the pop-ups. So if you're someone that gets irritated easily like me when it comes to pop-up of adverts or marketings all of the time, what you do is you go and set your pop-up blocker on your internet browser. And how do you do that, or what's the why do we need to block this website? Reasons for blocking these websites are some. Number one, they can be phishing websites that might want to solicit your personal information from you. So you've got to be very careful to take yourself away from any sort of temptation. It's good in preventing further targeting by spammers, so you've got to be careful about that. Parents might want to prevent the children from having access to content such as gambling or any sort of content or pornography that is not appropriate for children. So that is why we block certain websites sometimes. So when you find unnecessary or annoying pop-ups coming on your web pages, the best thing to do is to set up a pop-up blocker. Okay. The other thing I'm going to talk about quickly is cocaine. Cacheing is web browsers when web browsers are temporarily stored and such as your HTML page or images on your disk. And what this does is it reduces bandwidth usage and allow you to easily load previously visited web pages. So in other words, if you always or constantly or most times visit a particular web page, what your computer does is it stores the HTML page. Remember the HTML, like a website address and images on a disk in form of caches. And what that does is it's like chunk of definitions on an internet page. And what it does is whenever you want to visit those page again, your computer don't browse the internet for content on that page. What it does is it goes quickly into your cache, and what it does is it loads the page out of it. So in other words, it saves you on your data usage, and at the same time it allows you to quickly load web pages easily. Particularly if you're someone that works on a very slow internet connection, the best thing is to set what we call cache or cacheing features. Okay, some people would say cache, but I find it to be cacheing. Okay, so just bear that in mind. The other things I would like to talk about is what we call browser plugins. Example of browser plugins is your Adobe Flash, your QuickTime Player, your Microsoft Silverlight, your Adobe Shockwave Player, your Windows Media Player. These are what we call essentials in order for you to have what we call a media or a good media experience when you are online. So web pages sometimes contain specialized content, Flash or a PDF, and that is why we need to have all of these or some of these browser plugins installed in order for us to be able to view certain content on certain web pages. So bear that in mind. Web pages that has a lot of media streamings would require Flash plugins, or website that uses a lot of or that would like to load a PDF format document might need to have what you call the Adobe Flash in order for you to be able to load the document. Plugins are usually free, bear that in mind. I don't think we pay for any plugins. It's usually free. You can easily install it from the internet on your web page. Increasingly, browsers have the capacity to display this specialized content without needing plugins. So what we're saying is most of the browser that we now have, like a Firefox or Google Chrome, the top ones, Microsoft Edge, they now have the capacity to display specialized content without needing plugins. But I'm referring back to 5-6 years ago, when internet was just getting, to be the thing of the order of the day. We needed in those times a lot of plugins, which sometimes if you don't have internet connection might be a problem. But in these days when we have dedicated internet connections, things are changing. But having said that, it's just very important that we understand what plugins does. So plugins helps us to be able to display specialized content on web pages that we visit over there internet. So bear that in mind. All right. We also have browser add-ons apart from plugins, or we can say browser extension. We can have a translator. You know what the translator does? It translates from one language to another. We can have a ad blocker as an extension, or the pop-up blocker, if you remember what we said earlier on. Citation add-on, which will be able to cite sources that you visited, or video capturers, will be able to extract videos from websites that you've visited. Okay, so browser add-ons or extensions are useful third-party apps that can be downloaded, often for free, to extend the functionality of a browser beyond browsing. Okay, so very important. All right, so that takes us to the new trends and technologies. We just want to look at new trends on the internet, or new technologies that are emerging amongst us now. Okay, so quickly, mobile connectivity is a big thing now. Devices that are small are getting smaller and smaller, and then we're having a longer battery life and are instantly on. Connectivity not limited to space or time anymore. I think we have mostly now uncapped connection, anytime, any day connection to the internet through our mobile devices. Smartphone has many apps to use to access data. So now we're having many applications via our app store and everything. So things are really moving in the technological world. A term that I always want you to remember is always on connectivity. Always on connectivity refers to access to internet always and always and always. So in other words, always on and always available when you have dedicated internet access that do not stop. That's what we mean by always on connection, and this is becoming part of our daily lives. A lot of people cannot even spend a day or an hour without having access to internet. So it's another thing that we're all experiencing now. Increased bandwidth at a lower cost. Now we're able to connect at a faster speed and lower cost. Now with fiber optical connections, now we're able to connect at high speed to the internet, but at a lower cost compared to what we need to pay or what we used to pay in the past. Connectivity are more affordable and increases the number of people who make use of the internet. So as connectivity are becoming more affordable, we're now saying in South Africa that our internet penetration is increasing, which means people who have access to reliable, fast, and affordable internet are increasing every day. So that's what we mean by increased bandwidth to a lower cost. Digitization of media. All the books are becoming online now. Textbooks are going online. That's why we're having ebooks now. Magazines, newspaper, music, movies, and softwares are now sold in digital or downloadable formats. So we're no longer getting the CDs, we're no longer getting DVDs, Blu-rays anymore. Books, magazines, newspaper, music, movies, and softwares are now being sold or shared digitally or in downloadable formats. Okay, so bear that in mind. And then we're now having more of distributed processing and storage. Okay, storage and processing power access through the internet spread across multiple servers in different data centers around the world. So in other words, online cloud storage is done on another server somewhere around the world. That's easy now because of internet. Grid computing is becoming popular now. Remember grid computing, when we draw resources of many computers connected over the internet to achieve a common goal. So that is becoming increasingly visible amongst us now. Storage is now cheaper online, easy online, cloud. You can store all your information on your Google Drive. So we're having distributed processing and storage across the world. Cloud storage is becoming the norm now. So in other words, Google Drive, Apple Cloud, Microsoft Drive, they're all becoming part of us now. And everyone is just at an alarming and increasing rate using all of these trends of new technology. So it's just great that we talk about things like this so that you can also know how far we are when it comes to technology. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this topic, e-communication. Please watch the video over and over again, and it will be loaded on our Google Classroom, as well as extension work will be provided to you just to test and improve your knowledge. Thank you so much for listening to the message. Thank you.